Hi, thank you for joining us. Our COO and Extension Kit product owner, Alan De Biagi, will show you some new features of Extension Kit and introduce REST Object Type Connector for M files, the application for syncing M files and external objects. He will show you the case of retrieving files from the REST endpoint and how to store them in the M files with metadata. This is a topic we discussed with M files and some of our partners recently, so we will try to answer all the questions we heard in the last months. So firstly, Alan will give an update on new Extension Kit features, as well as the roadmap for the next release, introduce REST Object Type Connector and HTTP integration, and get straight to the use case. Of course, during the presentation, you can ask questions in the chat, and we will make sure to answer them all there. So let's dive in.
Hello everyone. I'm glad that I can see a lot of people have joined to this webinar. Today we will show you how you can retrieve files in DM files with HTTP and REST. My name is Alan De Biagi. I'm co-founder of Unitfly, and I'm also in charge for Extension Kit and REST Object Type Connector. Today, we'll see what is new with the Extension Kit. I will also explain the idea behind the REST Object Type Connector. We'll go through the concept of HTTP, REST, and SOAP, and then we'll combine everything learned in demo. So the current version of the Extension Kit is 4.2.12. Some cool features in the Extension Kit is that we added enable disable flag for rule groups. That's something that one of the partners has requested. Also, we added in HTTP feature that you can now save the files, and that's something that you will see today. And also, we made it possible to set one property when is an error in response and another property when is success. So the module will know when something has gone wrong or something isn't. In the next version, that will be 4.4.0, we will add a lot of improvements, but all the improvements will be around HTTP module and Excel integration module. Those two modules are pretty used today by us and by partners because there are a lot of services now where you need to integrate something with the HTTP, and Excel is now widely used as a front end. But we can cover all these modules in another webinars. And also we made versioning changes with the Extension Kit. Now, for example, for the next version, that will be 4.4.0, 4.4 will be the main version, and the last number will be bug fixes. Until now, we didn't have this last number for bug fixes. That was the new version of the Extension Kit with features, but now we will add all new features and everything in the middle. So, REST Object Type Connector is also the Vault application as the Extension Kit is. It installs the same way as the other Vault applications, but the difference is that REST Object Type Connector, when you install it, it will be visible on object type properties as connection to external database. You will see the service that is a REST Object Type Connector service. And you will configure that the same as you're now configuring if you are using the connection to the database. The REST Object Type Connector is the type of Vault application that will enable you to connect to a web service, and that web service needs to be a REST web service, and you can have get, post, and delete operations there that will enable you to have CRUD operations in DM files, for example, so create, update, read, or delete. I will cover all these basics also in one of the next slides. The current version of REST Object Type Connector is 1.3.4. In this version is also verified by DM files, it's cloud ready, and we added OAuth authentication in this version. In this month, we are also planning the next version that will be 1.4.0, and that version will have full configured Delta refresh, so that, for example, if you need to pull only changes, you will configure that and use the Delta refresh. So, HTTP is a protocol that is used for communication on the internet. It's widely used, and it has its request response protocol, which means that a client sends a request to a server, and then the server responds with the message containing the requested information. So if we use the picture that I've just shown you for the REST Object Type Connector, in this scenario we have a client that is DM files, and we have server that is some other server or web service or API or something like that, and the client will make some request, and then the server will respond to that request. Depends on the type, depends on the web service. These messages will be either XML or JSON or CSV or some other form. As I also mentioned, this server can be the API or web service or something else. So, having that in mind, that what HTTP is, we will cover in this presentation mostly the REST, but I will also mention the SOAP, as the SOAP is a protocol that defines a standardized way of exchanging structured data between applications over HTTP. It's typically used to create web services that expose functionalities to other applications. And SOAP messages are usually XML based, and are sent as payload of an HTTP request. So everything is sent in the body. On the other hand, REST is the architecture style that defines a set of constraints and principles for building web services. That's important, that this is an architecture style. So that RESTful web service typically use the standard HTTP methods like get, post, put, and delete that I just shown you, and with that methods we can perform CRUD operations like create, read, update, and delete. And RESTful web services use a simple data format such as JSON that we will also cover today. Both of these web services you can call using the HTTP module in the extension kit. So you can have get, post, put, and delete, and you can, for example, just send something to a web service, and also if they give you a response, you can update the object in the M files. Or what we'll also show today, you can save files in the M files. Just quick announcement: our next webinar will be how to integrate integrate external system with the files using the HTTP. So we will go deeper in the HTTP functionalities and show you how you can integrate other system using the HTTP module, and also how you can connect with other integration services like Logic Apps, and then you can use the strength of other integration services to integrate with other systems. But the REST object type connector, it will only use the REST architecture, so only REST web service. And with REST object type connector, you can also make a get, post, and pull, get, post, put, and delete methods. But you can also here create objects and also update, delete. But it can be vice versa. So if you create something in the env files, you can create the same thing in the web service, or if something is created in the web service, it will be created in the env files, updated, deleted, and so on. So, in a summary and overall, if you want some quick actions where you need to just call and send something to some web service, and you want to enrich objects, you will use HTTP module. But if you have the REST web service and you would like to synchronize that with your object type, where you can have creation and update and insert and delete, you will use REST object type connector. So let's go on a demo. For our demo, we will have env files and we will have some project system. What we would like to synchronize between the project system and the env files will be the projects. So whenever our customer creates a project in some project system, we will have that in the env files. So maybe they are using their project system to plan all the resources, to have all the tasks, and so on. So they're the big enterprise company, and they have a need for really for a project, some project software, and they're using that. But also, usually these project systems and softwares are not so good with the files, and that's where env files is great. So they are using project system to plan projects, to plan resources, tasks, and so on, their timeline. But they're saving all their files in the env files. And they're using the REST object type connector to synchronize projects and some metadata. And then they are just attaching files and sending files to the env files and attaching to that project. But they also have some external partners and external contractors, and they have a lot of external contractors. And each of these contractors have their own way how they are saving the files. And they're changing. So what we also would like to do is we would like to connect to some other service like Dropbox or Box or SharePoint, and we would like to save those external contractor files to our env files. And for that, we will use the HTTP module, which will connect to some other services and gather files to the same project. So we will have on one place in the env files our projects, our project documentation that we are creating, and also we will have different files from external contractors. Okay, so let's move to to our presentation, to our demo. So first thing what we need to show and go through is this part, project system to and files using a REST object type connector. So as I shown you before, it's installed as an application, and what we would like to do is configure this object type connector here. So currently is disabled, but let's configure it. But before, let's see what our web service is returning to us. So let's call that web service of project system. So this is our web service. I will call that web service using a postman, and for our response we will have two projects, one project REST object type 1 and project REST object type 2, and we have some metadata here or some properties in this JSON. Okay, so this is our web service, and let's configure a REST object type connector to call our web service. I have already configured that, so we will go through this. I will just expand this. Okay, I will enable it. As we can see in the M files, at the moment we don't have any projects here. So let's go here. What I will do before that, I will just expand our project. Okay, and then we can go to this. Okay, I will click enable. So our service data format is JSON that we have just seen in the Postman. We don't have any credentials because this is the mock API where we don't provide any type of credentials. But if you would need to use, you can add your credentials here. Our URL is this mock API that we have just seen, and we don't have any other information here. What we have is we have these column definitions. So these column definitions are something that our web services is returning. So ID, which is integer, title, which is a string, description is also a string, project manager is an integer, company is an integer, and project value is number. So we are doing the same thing here. So we are copying these columns and making sure that we have the right type. When we have done all this and we click the save, automatically we will have column mappings available. And now we need to map these columns from the API to our columns and our properties in the M files. So ID is the object ID. The title will be the name. Description will also be a description. Project manager will be a project manager, which is lookup to an object type. Company is also lookup to an object type, and project value is a value, some number. Okay, so I'll save this. close it. Okay, now we have fully configured REST object type connection. Let's start with refreshing. So it is creating a new object. And let's see in the env files, do we have our two projects here? Okay, I'm searching everything now. Search, okay. So we have our two projects with the metadata that we mapped. So we can see that all these are now mapped here. So if we add, if the customer add a new project, it will automatically be created here. But also we can see that these projects are automatically in some kind of workflow. So these are our two projects. Okay, so what we have done here, we have done this part. We have synchronized env files with project systems, and we have all these projects available in the env files. Now what we would like to do, we would like to gather files to these objects. So our service that is having these files available, it looks something like this. It also returns a JSON, but that JSON have file name here as a document PDF, have some kind of file ID, and have the content of the file as base 64. This can be done in this way. It depends on the web service. It can also be done that maybe you will have a binary returned. This can also be done with the HTTP module. So this is some kind of binary that web service has returned. So we don't have any information about that binary. Sometimes in the header we will have that its name is img.png. But how we can check that? We can save a response. So I will save that, and we can see that this is a picture of unit length. That's also one way how you can save the files, or in the next version of the extension kit, we will support multiparts. Multiparts are the responses that have the binary, so they have the content of the file in response, and also they have the metadata. So that's also one way how you can receive a response and then use the HTTP module to save it to the env files. But let's cover on our example. So this is our web service. We have file name here and file data. So let's go to the HTTP module. So HTTP module is part of the extension kit. Let's go. We have different examples in Demo Vault. We want to cover this rule: get file to project. So how you can receive files? Usually, what you will do, you will schedule that. If this is the scenario where some partner is just saving files to their location, you will maybe have some schedule action, and once a day or every hour you will check, is there any new file? If there is, you will pull it to the env files. In In this example, what I've done is I've said it, okay, let's bring the file when object enter the state. And this state is approved state in our PO approval workflow. And our HTTP settings are the same URL that we are using for getting this JSON with file name and file data. Again, I don't have any credentials, but what I need to do is I would like to save file. So the response type is JSON. File representation in this scenario is base 64. Our file is represented as a file, and the file name is also in the JSON. It's in a JSON path, and we will use a JSON path to retrieve the file name, and it's like file name here. So we will retrieve this document.pdf. And what we will do, we will save all properties and files to a source object. So the object that will go to state that is approved, it will trigger this operation and it will gather the file. How you can so this is the simple scenario, but probably what you will use is you will add in query parameter where project is your project title. So in this way you can call the web service with query parameter, and that will just bring files for that project, for example, so that maybe partner is saving files in a folder, and that in this way you will know, okay, those files are for that project. But in our scenario, we will save all these files that are available in the project that is approved. Okay, so we have our projects here, and let's move it to approved state. Okay, and what we have configured is that this is done in the background. So when something is done in the background, it will take a few seconds, and what we can see that we have our document saved to this object. Also, this one doesn't have it because it's still in the draft, but let's do it for that also. Okay, as everything is done in the background, it will take a second, and okay. Now we have documents here in our, and we can, for example, then have a scheduled operation that will just retrieve all these documents from some other service. And that's it. That's what we wanted to show you today. And if you have any questions, we will respond and answer them. Thank you for watching this webinar.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you find the use case helpful. If you have any more questions or suggestions for the next webinars, feel free to contact us. I encourage you to try REST Object Type Connector and Extension Kit if you still haven't. Also, if you want to hear about our product updates, you can subscribe to our newsletter. Once again, thank you for joining us, and see you soon.